You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. So the next article I wanted to take a look at is entitled, Independent Autopsy Finds George Floyd Died by Asphyxiation Homicide. Now this is by Reuters. Generally speaking, a lot of the mainstream media in the U.S. is completely untrustworthy and unreliable. That's kind of how I feel about it. But Reuters is actually pretty on point. Reuters is really good. The Associated Press can be good. There are some others that can be pretty good. ABC can be pretty good. BBC America is actually pretty on point also. So I try to get my news from those places. I don't even bother with MSNBC, with CNN, with NBC, or any of those others. Fox News, complete garbage. Complete garbage. Don't even bother. If you're wondering where I get my news so that you can get your news from the same places, I would suggest BBC America, Reuters, Associated Press. Those are pretty good places to go. Before we get into this article, though, let me just give a brief summary of what's happening at this moment. If you live under a rock and are completely unaware, there are riots in the streets right now. I was talking to my friend Suris the other day, and he was saying he didn't even feel right about releasing a video because the world, the U.S. at least, is on fire right now. Like, the world is a mess, and he didn't feel like what he had to say could possibly hold a candle to what's happening right now. And I pointed out to him that we are inundated with this horrific stuff happening day in and day out, and people need to get away from that sometimes. So I'm going to continue making videos about the same shit I always have because people need an escape from what's happening outside their windows. So I intend to continue talking about like Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and Scientology and all of this other stuff because people need to be able to walk away from the really horrific stuff that's happening in the news cycle at this immediate moment. Not to say that what's happening with Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and Scientology isn't bad. It is, but it's not this. So the point is, I've been trying to kind of steer clear of some of these subjects just to try to keep people sane. But this is something I feel I need to talk about, so I'm going to cover it. There's a man named George Floyd who was sitting outside of a shop, and that shop called the police, told them that a man had just used a counterfeit $20 bill. And that's pretty standard. I worked for a gas station one time, and I knew if you get a fake $20 bill, don't confront the person, don't tell them it's fake, don't ask them questions, don't ask them where they got it, none of that stuff. Because honestly, they may not even have realized that they had a fake one. Maybe somebody paid them with it, and they're paying you with it now. Like, it may not even be their fault. So just contact the police, tell them what's happening, and they will catch up with the person and question them, see if they know where they got it, and kind of try to track it down. Go from there. Well, the guy apparently, George Floyd, he paid with a counterfeit $20 bill. So the shop called the cops. The cops show up. They arrest George Floyd, put him in handcuffs, and there's footage from all different angles. It's hard to tell what happened because we don't have shots from every angle. We don't have shots from inside the car or whatever else, but the cops are claiming there was a struggle. He was resisting arrest. I don't know. And eventually they got him on the ground, and one police officer, Derek Chauvin, put his knee on George Floyd's neck, like on his on the veins and the arteries that supply blood to your brain, and on his throat where air moves through his lungs. And the guy was saying he couldn't breathe. Please put me in the car. Just put me in the car. Why do you want to sit there with your knee on my neck? You can just put me in the car. He started crying out for his mother, who's been dead for years. He was saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And the cop kept his knee on the guy's neck for 6 minutes. Then he became unresponsive, just out like a light. And he kept his knee on his neck 3 additional minutes after that, for a total of like 8 minutes and 46 seconds or something like that. And he died. That was it. He died. You know, as far as I'm concerned, and basically everybody else, that was straight up murder. That's murder. You fucking killed that guy. There are no two ways about that. You fucking killed that guy. Anyway, so that's where we sit right now. After that event took place, there were riots in the streets. There are still riots going on right now. I think we're like 5 days in now or something. There are fires being set, buildings being burned down, cars being flipped and set on fire. It is anarchy in the United States right now. Complete anarchy. It is a mess. I've never in my life seen anything like this before. It is insane. So they charged the guy, Derek Chauvin, with third-degree murder. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it. On Twitter, I did say that I'd be happy with that charge under certain circumstances. Like, for example, if he didn't know him previously, which they worked at the same club in 2019, so it's possible he did. If he got a long sentence, or at least longer than usual sentence, I'd be okay with it. Things like that. So I'm just going to let things play out a little bit before I really comment on how I feel definitively about the charges on him. But the original medical examiner basically said something like the guy had a ton of underlying health conditions and that's what contributed to the death. It wasn't completely this cop and all this other stuff. Well, the family, as it turns out, got an independent autopsy done, and the doctor basically had something completely different to say. So let's read this article and see what it says now. This is by Reuters. 2 doctors who carried out an independent autopsy of George Floyd, the black man whose death in Minneapolis police custody last week triggered nationwide protests, said on Monday that he died from asphyxiation and that his death was a homicide. The doctors also said Floyd had no underlying medical conditions that contributed to his death, and that he was likely dead before he was placed into an ambulance. That's actually really different from what the original medical examiner said. The medical examiner basically said there were all kinds of underlying health conditions that could have contributed to it. And I saw somebody on Twitter say something to the effect of, so you're telling me George Floyd was not healthy enough to be choked for 9 minutes and survive, and that's his fault. That's basically what this boils down to. I don't give a shit if he had underlying health conditions or not. The dude murdered him. You can't just choke somebody for 9 minutes and get away with that shit. You can't. You can't get away with that shit. If the system isn't going to punish him, then people are going to riot, as we're seeing. Let's continue reading the article and see what else it says here. That contradicts the initial findings of the official autopsy by the Hennepin County Medical Examiner, which was cited in the court charging document against the police officer who drove his knee into Floyd's neck for several minutes. Damn, I didn't know that the original Hennepin County Medical Examiner was cited in the court charging document. That's extremely disappointing. Those initial findings said there was no evidence of traumatic strangulation. It also said coronary artery disease and hypertension also likely contributed to Floyd's death. So it said here coronary artery disease and hypertension likely contributed to Floyd's death. If you don't know that it for sure did, don't fucking put it in there. It says likely. That verbiage should not even be in an official court charging document. It's speculation. That's what that is. They put speculation inside of a court document. What the fuck is wrong with these people? What are they doing? This is absurd. The county's full autopsy report has not yet been released. Later on Monday, the medical examiner declared Floyd's death was a homicide. The evidence is consistent with mechanical asphyxia as cause of death and homicide as manner of death, said Dr. Alicia Wilson of the University of Michigan, one of the two forensic doctors who performed an independent autopsy. Dead within minutes is the subheading here. Bystander who showed Floyd pleading to be let up and saying repeatedly that he couldn't breathe as a police officer, Derek Chauvin, kept his knee firmly pinned into Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes. 2 other officers applied pressure with their knees to Floyd's back. Chauvin, who is white and has been fired from the Minneapolis Police Department, was hit with third-degree murder and manslaughter charges last week. But Dr. Michael Baden, who also took part in the independent autopsy at the behest of Floyd's family, said that the 2 other officers' actions also caused Floyd to stop breathing. We can see after a little bit less than 4 minutes that Mr. Floyd is motionless, lifeless, Baden said, adding he found no underlying health conditions in Floyd that caused his death. Baden has worked on several high-profile cases, including the 2014 death of Eric Garner, a black man who died after being choked by police in New York City. Baden shot down the argument that if Floyd could speak, then he could breathe. Many police are under the impression that if you can talk, that means you're breathing. That is not true, Baden said. I'm talking right now in front of you and not taking a breath. One of my issues with this whole situation is there were 4 police officers around, right? One of them was standing up and kind of trying to deal with the crowd. The other 3 were on top of Floyd with their knees in his neck and or back. They heard him crying for his life, and they heard the crowd screaming for them to put him in the car. This doesn't just fall on Chauvin. Why didn't the other 2 tell him to move his fucking knee? Or grab his knee and move it themselves? Or stand the dude up and put him in the car? Why? Why didn't they do that? I can understand, like, the cop that was kind of up and walking around and trying to manage the crowd. I get that they weren't really paying attention to what was happening behind them as much as, you know, Derek Chauvin was, for example. So I could forgive it if they gave them a lesser charge. But as far as I'm concerned, all 3 of those people are culpable in this murder. They all 3 took part in this murder. It really makes me want to cry, this situation. Seriously. It really does. Let's finish this article up here. More charges demanded. Antonio Romanucci, one of the attorneys representing the Floyd family, said that all 4 officers at the scene should be facing charges, not just Chauvin. I agree. Yeah, I agree. I don't know about the 4th one standing up managing the crowd. I only saw the video once. It was truly hard to watch. Maybe they did know what was happening, and maybe they should be faced with charges. Maybe involuntary manslaughter? I don't know. Something. Not only was the knee on George's neck a cause of his death, but so was the weight of the other 2 police officers on his back. Oh, and the fact that none of them said anything to Derek Chauvin. That's another cause of death. Not only was the knee on George's neck a cause of his death, but so was the weight of the other 2 police officers on his back, who not only prevented the blood flow into his brain, but the airflow into his lungs, Romanucci said. That makes all of those officers on the scene criminally liable. I agree. But the outrage is toward Derek right now. Ben Crump, lead attorney for the Floyd family, and also, interestingly enough, lead attorney for the Ahmaud Arbery case, said the independent autopsy and video evidence make it clear that Floyd was dead while he was still lying on the street with police atop him. That ambulance was his hearse, he said. Crump said the Floyd family wants to see charges lodged against all 4 officers who were at the scene, and for Chauvin, who need Floyd's neck, to be facing first-degree murder charges. I don't know. I don't think it's first-degree murder because I don't know that it was premeditated. I think first-degree requires them to have known each other beforehand and for it to be premeditated. Those are like requirements for first-degree. It could be second-degree. It's complicated. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know exactly. But from what I do know, I don't think it's a first-degree type of case. I think it's a definitional thing. Like, they could give him second degree and then give him other charges on top of that, so it adds up to the same type of sentencing as a first-degree murder would add up to. I just want to make sure that they get the sentencing correct and accurate. Anyway, but they're also seeking an end to the violent protests that have beset the United States to end. George died because he needed a breath of air, Crump said. I implore you all to join his family in taking a breath for justice, taking a breath for peace. This whole situation is so ugly. It's so extremely ugly and sad, and I just can't stand it. It's heartbreaking. It really makes me want to cry, man. I see these shirts that say, like, pictures of George Floyd on them that say rest in power and stuff. It's just so inspiring and sad, and probably the saddest part of this aftermath is the fact that George Floyd will never know what he meant to the country and the history books. Like, his family will know what he meant to the country in the history books, but he never will. Just heartbreaking. It's just extremely heartbreaking. Anyway, there was another article I wanted to look at because there is some serious aftermath taking place right now. Last I heard, the news is really rolling out faster than I can keep up at the moment, but protests have broken out across the country in all different cities. It is a train wreck. It is the definition of a dumpster fire. And people actually went to the White House to protest, basically protesting outside the White House. And Trump is scared. He's afraid. It's fairly obvious. He has been tweeting about the whole situation, watching it happen. It started out with a tweet about... it started out with him tweeting about MAGA supporters coming to the White House to counter-protest the protesters, basically trying to start a confrontation or a conflict between people protesting, George Floyd's death, starting a confrontation between them and his own supporters, his own Make America Great Again people. And as far as I know, I think they did show up. But last I heard, they actually locked the White House down and turned off the lights and brought Trump into the bunker underneath the White House. I hope they had a television in there. Otherwise, he was probably bored as fucking shit. But I'm not sure if it was before he went into the bunker or after he came out. But he was tweeting about looking out the window and seeing people protesting and seeing the Secret Service defending him and things like that. And it was clear to me that he was afraid. Now, I said this on Twitter. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want Trump to get hurt. I don't want police to get hurt. I don't want protesters to get hurt. I don't want anybody hurt. I am so pacifist. I don't believe in violence. There is a part of me that feels vindication, though, at the fact that Trump is feeling some of that fear that he inspired in people with all of the racist bullshit he's slung at them over the years. I mean, I'm sure you guys remember him calling Mexicans every name in the book, criminals and everything else. And I'm sure you remember him calling it the Chinese virus. And we could watch hate crimes against Asians spike every time he said it. The dude is living in fear at this immediate moment because he's afraid people are going to break through the White House gates and hurt him or something. Now, I don't want that to happen. I do not condone that. Do not want that to happen under any circumstances. But it is vindicating to know that he feels some of the fear that he inspired in other people. There was some news that broke right before we actually got into the podcast, so I wanted to just kind of read through some of this. No, I don't think I'm going to read the whole thing, but I figure we'll just read a little bit of it. This is on the pbs.org website, Public Broadcasting System. Title is, Trump says if governors don't crack down on protests, he will quickly solve the problem for them, which, FYI, means martial law. Minneapolis. President Donald Trump threatened on Monday to deploy the U.S. military unless states quickly halted the violent protests that have convulsed cities from coast to coast hours after George Floyd's brother pleaded for peace, saying destruction is not going to bring my brother back at all. The competing messages, one conciliatory, one bellicose, came as the U.S. braced for another round of violence at a time when the country is already buckling because of the coronavirus outbreak and the depression-level unemployment it has caused. Trump said he was recommending that governors throughout the country deploy the National Guard in sufficient numbers to dominate the streets. If governors fail to take action, Trump said he will deploy the U.S. military and quickly solve the problem for them. So Trump wants to deploy military on the streets of the U.S. and put down anybody they see. This is a nightmare, to say the least. Trump spoke in the Rose Garden minutes after police fired tear gas to disperse hundreds of peaceful, chanting protesters gathered in the park across the street from the White House. Yeah, see, we have a right to protest. That's the thing. We have a constitutional right to protest. So if they're firing tear gas into a peaceful protest, they're violating people's human rights. But I don't think it matters at this point. Who is going to stop them? Who is going to stop them? The National Guard presence in Washington was much more overt Monday than the day before. Beige Hummers blocked several downtown intersections. But in Minneapolis, Floyd's brother Terrence made an emotional plea for peace at the site where Floyd was pinned to the pavement by an officer who put his knee on the handcuffed black man's neck until he stopped breathing. Let's switch it up, y'all. Let's switch it up. Do this peacefully, please, Terrence Floyd said. A lot of people are doing it peacefully. There is a difference between protesters and rioters and looters. There are a difference between those three groups. Protesters are doing it peacefully. Rioters are not. Looters are just taking advantage of the situation. But it doesn't matter ultimately because they don't want the protests to be taking place at all right now. The federal government doesn't, like Trump doesn't. And I mean, Amnesty International even came out and said the U.S. is not allowing people to protest peacefully. This is just an extremely disturbing situation. And I don't even know what to do about it. I just want to move out of the fucking country, like right now. I'm probably going down with the ship, but one can dream. Anyway, let's continue reading. The crowd chanted, "What's his name? George Floyd," and "One down, 3 to go," in reference to the 4 officers involved in Floyd's arrest. Officer Derek Chauvin has been charged with murder, but protesters are demanding that his colleagues be prosecuted too. All 4 were fired. I'd like to see him prosecuted also. I can't imagine they can get a job anywhere right now. They're probably straight up fucked. The gathering was part rally and part impromptu eulogy as Floyd urged people to stop the violence and use their power at the ballot box. It's an extremely important point. If I'm not over here messing up my community, then what are you all doing? He said. You all are doing nothing, because that's not going to bring my brother back at all. The country has been beset by angry demonstrations for the past week in some of the most widespread racial unrest in the U.S. since the 1960s. Spurred in part by Floyd's death, protesters have taken to the streets to decry the killings of black people by police. Tell you what Trump could do to fix this problem. He thinks that he's going to dominate people and make them stop rioting. That's going to make it worse. I don't know about rioting. It may not make the rioting worse, but it's going to make the racial divide worse, and it's going to make people hate him even more. I will tell you what he could do to solve the problem, though, and make himself a lot more popular come election time. He could push through executive orders that are tangible changes and tangible fixes to the problem that we're facing right now. So maybe he can't affect local police forces exactly with executive orders. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. He could push an executive order through basically ordering police to have stricter psych evals and mandatory body cams. If that's not something he could do through executive order, then it would at the very least improve his image and show people that he cares a lot about what happens with this situation. And he could at the very least try to pressure local police forces into doing that by threatening to withhold funding. There's a ton of shit he could do to bridge the divide. There's a massive divide in the country right now. And he's literally not doing shit about it. He's not doing anything. Why not? This is his opportunity to win the black vote. Right here. Do it. Do something to improve the country and win over some voters while you're at it. Nope. Instead, he would rather dominate protesters with military forces. I don't understand his logic. I don't get it. I don't understand what he's thinking or why he's doing it this way. It's because he's got an authoritarian mindset, not a problem solver mindset, not a let's work together to solve this. Let's work together to figure this out. We all have a problem. We're all a country together, and I want us to find a solution to the problem that we are dealing with. No, that's not how he thinks. He thinks people are scaring me, so now I'm going to dominate them with guns. That's what he thinks. That's his mindset. That's an authoritarian mindset. That's the type of authoritarian nightmare that we live in right now. We have to go vote. Even if you're not voting for Biden, that's okay. You know, that's okay. Go vote anyways. Go vote for senators and congressmen and everybody else. There are like a ton of different people to vote for. They're like city assessors and stuff that you can vote for. Vote for them. Go to the ballot box or get an absentee ballot or whatever and vote, man. Even if you don't circle in that little box for Biden, just fucking vote. It is the most important thing that you can do right now. This is probably the most important election of your life, of any of our lives, right here, right now.